The ocean churned violently beneath a bruised sky, the scent of salt thick in the air as waves battered a jagged rock shelf. Amid the chaos, a lone harbor seal pup, barely 4 weeks old, flopped across the slick stone, its eyes wide with terror. A thunderous splash exploded behind it. From the shadows of the surge emerged a monstrous silhouette, an adult orca, its dorsal fin slicing through the water like a blade. Lightning cracked above, illuminating the desperate pup as it cried out, its voice nearly drowned by the roaring surf. The rocks offered no escape. Blood from an earlier wound stained the seal's side, trailing behind it in red ribbons. Somewhere nearby, something watched, a drone camera deployed by a marine conservationist tracking ocean predators. The seal hesitated, flippers slipping. Then the orca lunged. It was the beginning of either the end, or the most unlikely rescue ever witnessed on open sea. Not far from the chaos, from a bluff overlooking the shore, marine conservationist Eliza Hammond squinted through rain-soaked binoculars. Her pulse surged as she spotted the seal. Wounded, cornered. She dropped her coffee, forgotten in the grass. "No, no, no," she whispered. Her drone camera streamed the horror in real time. Eliza had tracked this pup since its birth. She knew its mother had died weeks ago from entanglement. The pup had survived alone. Until now. She tapped into her headset. "Unit Delta, we have a juvenile in immediate danger. Repeat," Predator confirmed. "Seal is injured." But the base was silent. Weather interference jammed her signal. Thunder boomed overhead. She clenched her jaw, leaped into her ATV, and roared down the slope. No backup. No plan. Just one shot to intervene before nature's harsh judgment took its toll. As the ATV tore through the wet underbrush, Eliza's thoughts raced. She replayed every rescue she'd ever done, but none this raw. Down below, the seal screamed again, a high-pitched cry swallowed by wind. She slammed the brakes. The shoreline lay just ahead. The orca had vanished. That was worse than seeing it. She scanned the surf. No sign. Then, suddenly, a fin. Much closer now. It was circling. She grabbed the emergency flare gun from her pack. Her fingers trembled, soaked and stiff. "Come on," she hissed, loading a shell. "You're not dying today, baby." The flare was old. Salt-logged. Might not fire. But it was all she had. She stepped onto the rocks, waves licking her boots, as the storm lit up behind her like a warning from the gods. The seal pup flopped weakly, its breathing ragged. Every movement took effort. Blood loss, exhaustion, and cold were winning. It glanced upward and saw her. Eliza. Human, bright red, alien in the chaos. But not a threat. The pup's eyes softened. Eliza stepped forward, voice steady. "Easy, sweetheart. I'm here." But the orca rose again, black and white like a flag of war. Its eye fixed on Eliza now. Predator met protector. She didn't flinch. She aimed the flare gun. "Back off," she said to the sea itself. And pulled the trigger. The flare soared into the dark sky, a comet of red fire, hissing through the storm. For a heartbeat, the world paused. The orca dove, disappearing beneath a crashing wave. Eliza rushed forward, kneeling beside the pup. Its sides heaved, but it was alive. She scooped it into a thermal sling, straining under its weight. A massive wave smashed the rock beside them, drenching them both. She staggered back, shielded the seal with her body, and turned toward the cliffs. The battle had just begun, but for now, she'd stolen the first victory from death's jaws. Eliza's arms burned as she carried the pup up the incline. Rain turned the path into a muddy slide, but she didn't stop. Each step was a promise. At the cliff's top, her field tent came into view, small, battered, but a sanctuary. She ducked inside, gently laying the pup on a pile of thermal blankets. It trembled, salt crusted in its whiskers, breath shallow. Eliza wiped her face with a sleeve. "You made it," she whispered. We've got a long road, little one. She rummaged for her emergency kit, saline, wound sealant, glucose solution. Her hands shook not from cold but fear. Stay with me, she murmured, pressing fluid into the pup's mouth with a syringe. A small sound escaped it, a weak, trusting squeak. And with that, her composure cracked. You're not dying. Not after all that. She named him Koa. It meant brave in Hawaiian, fitting for a pup who had stared down death and kept moving. As Koa slept, Eliza pulled out her field journal, flipping to a blank page. Her handwriting was tight and rushed. Subject: Harbor seal pup, male, est. 4 weeks, condition: critical but stable. She paused. So many she'd rescued had never made it to the second entry. She looked over at him, his small body rising and falling beneath the blankets. You're a fighter, she said aloud. Her radio crackled suddenly. Static, then a voice. Base to Hammond, do you copy? Relief flooded her face. Hammond here, I've got a live pup, serious injuries, predator in the area. Need evac. The line went dead again. She sighed. We're still alone, Koa, but not for long. The storm eased by morning. Light filtered through the fabric walls, casting golden beams onto the floor. Koa stirred. Eliza was already awake, watching. His eyes opened slowly, cloudy but alert. She reached out, palm up. He didn't flinch. Instead, he nudged her fingers with his snout. It was trust, tentative but real. That's right, Eliza whispered. I've got you. She gently examined the wound again. Infection was a risk. She applied antiseptic, Koa wincing but staying still. Outside, the ocean was calmer now, deceptively peaceful. She glanced toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, the Orca circled. She didn't know if it was done. But one thing was certain. If it came back, she would be ready. Later that day, Eliza recorded a video log. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. Field log 4A. Rescue classified as high priority. Subject is a harbor seal pup, separated from mother, attacked by Orca. Initial wound cleaned. Prognosis uncertain. Behind her, Koa rested, breathing easier. She turned the camera to him. He's got willpower, more than most. Her tone softened. But he's alone. He shouldn't be. She paused, gaze lingering. Neither should I. She clicked the camera off and sat in silence. The wind howled just beyond the tent walls, but inside there was calm. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about connection. Saving Koa wasn't only for him. It was saving something in her too. As night fell again, the temperature dropped. Eliza moved Koa closer to the portable heater, checking his vitals. He blinked at her, more present now. She smiled faintly, exhaustion written in her face. You're stronger than you look, she murmured, brushing a hand over his head. Koa gave a soft squeal. A memory stirred, of her first rescue as a rookie intern. A dolphin calf, tangled in netting. It hadn't survived. That loss had carved something into her. But Koa... He felt different. He felt like redemption. She lay beside him on a bedroll, jacket zipped up to her chin, one hand still resting lightly on his fur. Outside, the sea whispered, and wind moaned, but inside, for the first time in a long time, Eliza slept. By midday, Koa attempted to sit up. He wobbled and collapsed, but the effort meant something. Eliza cheered quietly, recording the movement on her camera. You're pushing back, she said with a grin. But just as hope rose, her laptop pinged, battery warning. She turned to the solar panel outside. It hadn't charged in days due to the storm. Her satellite radio flickered with static. Fuel reserves were low. Resources were dwindling faster than expected. She moved to her supply bins. Medical stock was half gone. The drone's batteries were dead too. She swallowed her frustration. We're running out of lifelines, buddy. Koa let out a soft, breathy sound. He didn't understand, but his eyes locked on hers, as if urging her to keep going. Eliza sat back, rubbing her temples. A plan would come. It had to. She ventured outside, stepping carefully across slick rocks. The sea had calmed, but it whispered ominously. Eliza climbed a ledge, raising a satellite antenna she'd packed for emergencies. It flickered once, twice, then nothing. Frustration hit like a wave. She needed to signal base or risk isolation. A shadow moved in the water. She froze. For a heartbeat, she saw it, black dorsal fin slicing through calm waves. The Orca. It hadn't left. Watching. Waiting. She backed down slowly, not turning her back to the ocean. "You're patient," she whispered. "But so am I." Her boots hit the sand, and she sprinted back to the tent. This wasn't over. The predator was still out there, and now it was hunting on its own time. That night, she barely slept. Wind howled again, as if the sea had sensed her defiance. Around 2 a.m. Koa whimpered. "Fever." She touched his side. It burned. "No, not now," she muttered, grabbing antibiotics. But the bottle was nearly empty. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Hang on, just hang on." She dampened his body with cloths, used the last cooling gel in her kit. Koa's breathing hitched. Eliza buried her panic. She'd seen animals fail fast under stress. But she'd also seen miracles. She hummed softly, a tune her mother used when Eliza was sick as a child. Koa stilled. Not cured, but comforted. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "You can't die on me now. We're in this together." At dawn, fog rolled in from the sea, thick and cold. Eliza emerged with heavy eyes. The silence was unnatural. Not even gulls called. She climbed to a lookout rock and scanned the water. The fog thinned, and there it was. The Orca, surfacing in slow, deliberate motion, closer than ever. Its black eye stared straight at her before dipping below again. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. The line between beast and hunter blurred. Why was it so fixated? Was it territorial or personal? Eliza descended the rock slowly, heart pounding. If it came for Koa again, she had no defenses left. Her hands clenched into fists. "If I lose him," she whispered, "I lose everything." The fog swallowed her words. The next afternoon, Eliza made a desperate decision. She packed what she could into her rescue sled, blankets, food, water, Koa wrapped securely, and lashed it to her ATV. She would try to reach the ranger station 12 miles inland. No guarantees. No path. But waiting was no longer safe. She looked back at the cliff one last time. The ocean was calm. Deceptively so. "You want him," she muttered. "You'll have to catch me first." She mounted the ATV and hit the ignition. It sputtered, then roared. With Koa strapped behind her, Eliza gunned forward into the unknown, leaving the ocean and the hunter behind. For now. The ATV tore through thick brush and muddy trails, the path more instinct than memory. Hours passed. Eliza's hands were numb, her eyes dry from wind and grit. Koa whimpered softly with each jolt, but he held on. As they crested a ridge, the landscape opened. An abandoned ranger outpost stood crooked beneath a canopy of storm-shattered trees. Eliza pulled up hard, engine steaming. She rushed inside. Dust, broken glass, decay. But solar panels still intact. Her pulse spiked. She powered up the radio relay. It blinked green. "Yes," she cried. Finally, a chance. She sat Koa down on a blanket near a cracked window. The place reeked of disuse, but it was shelter. She typed a distress call. "Urgent medevac. Wildlife rescue. One human. One injured juvenile." But as she hit send, the screen froze. No signal. No data. She stared in disbelief. Not again. As night fell, Eliza scavenged through the outpost. Old maps, water filters, a cracked first aid kit. She found a weathered photo on the wall, two smiling rangers, one of them unmistakably her father. She froze. Her breath caught. She hadn't been here since she was a child. This outpost wasn't just a random waypoint, it was personal. Her father had worked this coastline until his final mission. He died in these woods. She touched the faded frame. "Why here?" she whispered. Behind her, Koa stirred. He was waking again. She moved to him and cradled his head gently. "Looks like you and I are both lost boys," she murmured. The past hadn't just found her. It had pulled her back to where everything began. Rain pounded the roof as Eliza sat beside Koa, the photo still clutched in her hand. "He died trying to save something too," she told him quietly. "A dolphin calf, caught in drift nets. He never came back." Her voice cracked. "I was just a kid. They said he was brave, but I always thought he was reckless." She looked at Koa. "Now I get it." She brushed a hand along his flipper. "You fight for something not because you think you'll win, but because it's the only choice." Koa blinked slowly, his small body curled in trust. The wind screamed through the trees, but inside Eliza found strange calm. Her mission had changed. This wasn't just rescue anymore. It was legacy. The next morning brought clarity. Eliza found a functioning radio antenna tucked behind the cabin, hidden beneath ivy. She reconnected wires, hands raw and trembling. Static, then a crackle. "This is Central Ops. Identify transmission." She grabbed the mic. "This is Eliza Hammond, Wildlife Rescue. I need medevac. Juvenile seal, critical status. I have location coordinates." A long pause. "Copy that, Eliza. We'll dispatch airlift ETA 6 hours. Relief rushed through her, dizzying and pure. She ran inside, knelt beside Koa, and kissed his forehead. "We're getting out," she whispered. "Both of us." Fight wasn't over, but for the first time there was a way forward. But as the sun climbed higher, a sound shattered the calm. Low, rhythmic, heavy. The drone of breath. Eliza stepped outside, heart hammering. Down in the shallows, the orca had returned. Closer than ever. It wasn't attacking. It floated, still and enormous, eyes fixed on the shore. Eliza's breath hitched. "Why are you here?" she murmured. Then it happened. From the fog behind it, another smaller seal pup surfaced, paddling beside the orca. Not prey, escort. The truth hit her. This wasn't a random predator. It was a mother, searching for its lost child. Koa, dat. A wild bond shattered by violence. Eliza stepped back slowly, eyes wide. The orca hadn't been hunting. It had been grieving. Eliza stood rooted in place. The orca hovered just beyond the shoreline, still as stone, its eye trained on her. The second pup swam timidly at its side, nuzzling against the massive creature. Koa whimpered behind her from inside the cabin. Her mind reeled. Could it be possible? The two pups, similar in size, markings, siblings, twins? She stepped backward slowly and turned toward the ranger cabin. Koa lifted his head, eyes bright but confused. Eliza knelt. "You were never lost," she said softly. "You were taken." She looked back toward the sea. "And she's been looking for you this whole time." The orca wasn't the threat. Eliza had mistaken a grieving mother for a hunter. The twist shattered her instincts and forced a decision. Was this rescue or reunion? She carried Koa down the slope slowly, bundled tightly, her every step a hesitation between hope and fear. The orca didn't move. The second pup squeaked softly and swam forward, circling as if recognizing his sibling. Koa's head lifted, nose twitching. Then a soft noise escaped him, an answering chirp. "Ah!" Eliza froze. Koa wriggled weakly in her arms. "You recognize each other," she breathed. The mother orca surged closer, massive yet silent. Eliza's breath caught. "If I put him down," she whispered, "am I saving him or abandoning him?" Her heart pounded. The wind stilled. Time slowed. She knelt in the tide and set Koa gently on the wet sand. His eyes never left the water. Koa lay motionless for a moment, the cool waves touching his fur. Then with trembling limbs he pulled himself forward, one drag, then another. Eliza reached out instinctively, but stopped herself. The second pup squealed and swam in circles. The orca dipped beneath the surface. Eliza panicked. Was it leaving? No. No. A dark shadow rose directly in front of Koa. The massive head broke the surface, water cascading off its features. Koa paused, then pressed his nose gently to the orca's snout. Time shattered. The moment was primal. Holy. Eliza covered her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't just nature. It was reunion. Redemption. Family. I know. Koa slipped into the water beside his sibling, circling weakly but purposefully. The mother orca flanked them both, her presence protective yet calm. Eliza stumbled back onto the beach, breathless. Her instincts screamed to pull Koa out, to save him from wild uncertainty. But her heart whispered something deeper. He belonged here. She had done her part. The rescue was never about possession. It was about letting go. The family swam out slowly, cutting through the surf like a single body. Koa turned his head once, just once, toward Eliza. She raised a hand, smiling through her tears. "You're home," she said. "And I'm free." Minutes later, the chopper arrived, blades slicing through the sky. A ranger stepped out, puzzled. "Where's the injured pup?" Eliza pointed to the horizon. "Gone," she said. "Home." They didn't understand. She didn't expect them to. As she climbed aboard, wind whipping her face, she looked back one last time. The sea had returned to silence. Still, unknowable, sacred. Koa was part of it now. She'd come to rescue a life, and had instead helped restore a family. The flight lifted off. Eliza closed her eyes. For the first time in years, her chest didn't feel heavy. The mission was over. But the memory of that reunion would ripple through her forever, like a wave, soft and endless. Back at the mainland rescue center, the world moved differently. Everything was cleaner, quieter, and somehow emptier. Eliza sat alone in the debriefing room, fingers tapping a steaming mug of coffee. A Marine officer across from her skimmed through the incident report. "Ah, so you're telling me the orca wasn't attacking?" he asked. Eliza nodded. She was retrieving, protecting. He leaned back, skeptical. "That's not typical behavior." Eliza smiled faintly. "Neither was this pup." He said nothing more, just nodded and signed the form. But Eliza didn't need validation. What she'd witnessed out there was beyond classification. It wasn't a case study. It was something sacred. She stood, her body sore, but her mind at peace. "We label too much," she murmured as she left. "Sometimes it's just love." Later that afternoon, Eliza walked the sanctuary docks. Volunteers bustled around, feeding otters, weighing seabirds, cleaning enclosures. But she moved slower now, more contemplative. Every creature she passed felt different somehow. Not a rescue. A story. A soul. She paused by a fenced pen where a young sea lion pup balked up at her with playful eyes. Eliza crouched, smiling softly. "You're lucky," she said. "You've got a second chance." The pup pawed at the gate, joyful and unaware of the storms that could have ended him. For a moment, her hand hovered near the latch. Then she stood again. "One day, not yet," she whispered. Some animals needed to heal longer before they could be released. Others? They just needed the ocean. That night, Eliza returned home for the first time in weeks. Her small coastal cabin was untouched, sand still in the rug, dishes in the sink. She set her bag down, kicked off her boots, and stared at the ocean beyond the window. It shimmered in moonlight, calm and indifferent. She moved to her desk, pulled open a drawer, and retrieved a weathered field journal, her father's. She hadn't touched it since the memorial. Slowly, she flipped through pages of handwritten observations, sketches of dolphins, notes on migration patterns. And near the back, a single phrase underlined twice: sometimes nature doesn't need saving. It needs remembering. Eliza exhaled deeply, the truth washing over her like tidewater. Her father had always understood. And now, so did she. In the following days, she returned to her routines: rehab monitoring, data logging, crew coordination. But something had shifted. She no longer moved with the urgency of panic, but with the steadiness of presence. On her lunch break, she sat under a cypress tree watching the waves. Another researcher approached, holding a photo. Koa, captured from the drone footage. Eliza smiled at the image. The wide eyes, the storm-torn coat, the will to live. "Want to frame it?" the researcher asked. Eliza shook her head. "No," she said gently. "That story belongs to the ocean now." She handed it back. Some things weren't meant for walls. They were meant for the wild. On the 7th day, she walked alone down to the beach. No gear, no clipboard, just herself. She reached the same ridge where she'd first spotted the seal through her binoculars. The tide was low, gulls circling lazily overhead. She closed her eyes and listened. And for a heartbeat, maybe it was imagination, she heard it. A familiar squeal, far out at sea. Her lips curled into a smile. "Whim far, little one," she whispered. "But don't forget where you were loved." The wind tugged her coat gently, like a memory brushing past. She turned and began the long walk home, footsteps light in the sand. The rescue was over. But the bond, imprinted forever. Weeks later, Eliza stood before a group of young volunteers in the sanctuary's open-air classroom. Behind her, the sea glistened, unbothered and eternal. "This is where our job begins," she told them. "Not just when animals are injured, but when we listen closely enough to understand why they're here in the first place." She paused, lifting a tablet showing footage of Koa nuzzling the orca. The screen flickered with ocean light. A hush fell. "That wasn't just rescue," she said. "That was reunion, recognition, something wild remembering something lost." One student raised a hand. "Did he come back?" Eliza smiled gently. "No," she said. "And that's the point." She turned toward the ocean, the wind wrapping her words in silence. That night, Eliza wandered down to the shoreline one last time. The moon hung high, draping silver across the waves. She walked barefoot, the cold tide soaking her ankles. In her hand she held Koa's tracking tag, the tiny device she'd removed before letting him go. It had never been activated. She'd chosen to let the wild stay wild. She knelt at the water's edge and buried it softly beneath the wet sand. "No one needs to follow you," she whispered. "Just swim." The tide washed over the spot and carried the grains away. She didn't cry. There were no tears left, only gratitude. In letting go, she'd found something more enduring than possession. She'd found peace. Back at her cabin, Eliza placed the final entry in her journal. Her handwriting was slow, but steady. Subject: Koa. Status: returned to the wild. Outcome: unmeasurable. She paused, then added one final line beneath it. Not everything rescued needs to stay. She closed the book and set it on her shelf beside her father's. For the first time, the two journals sat side by side. Legacy didn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispered. A gust of wind fluttered the curtains as she stepped outside. The stars blazed clear above. She tilted her head back, letting their cold brilliance fill her. There were so many things she didn't know. But one thing had become beautifully certain. Love didn't always end in holding on. In the sanctuary's digital archive, a short video titled "The One That Returned" began to circulate, grainy drone footage of a lone seal pup braving the rocks, the predator's fin behind him, the flare light, and the final reunion. It was passed between researchers, then conservation groups, then classrooms across the world. People cried. Some argued it couldn't be real. Others believed it too deeply to question. Eliza didn't post it. She never even watched the final edit. But sometimes she'd hear from strangers who had. One message read, "Thank you for reminding us what wild love looks like." Eliza never replied. She didn't need to. She already knew. One morning, much later, as the sun broke the horizon in shimmering silence, Eliza walked the cliffs above the sea. Below, a pod surfaced, graceful dark shapes gliding in and out of view. She didn't reach for binoculars. Didn't need to. Among them, one shape was smaller, younger, dug wall, moving beside a massive orca as if born of the current itself. Eliza watched, unmoving, breath caught in her chest. And just before they vanished beneath the surf, the small one breached once, twirling in the air like a splash of joy. Her hand lifted instinctively. No wave. Just a silent greeting. Then they were gone. But in that vanishing shimmer, everything had been said. And everything was enough.